Welcome to the Prospective Doctor Podcast, where we will provide essential information for pre-medical students and those already in medical school. Listen each week for tips on how to improve your application and gain an acceptance to medical school.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Dr. Renee Marinelli, and I am the Director of Advising at Med School Coach. Today I wanted to talk about the personal statement. The personal statement for medical school applicants can produce a lot of anxiety, and it's a pretty uncertain area of the application, and a lot of medical students or pre-meds, they just do not know where to begin. I remember when I was applying to medical school, I struggled with the personal statement. I didn't know what to write. I didn't know when to start writing it. I didn't know how long it should be or what it should really be about. So I wanted to address some of those common concerns today. If you read the AAMC's instructions on the personal statement, they're pretty vague. So they tell you to use the personal comments essay as an opportunity to distinguish yourself from other applicants. You can consider writing why have you selected the field of medicine, what motivates you to learn more about medicine, what do you want medical schools to know about you that hasn't been disclosed in other areas of your application. And in addition, you can include things about hardships, challenges, or commentary on significant fluctuations in your academic record. So they do not really set a requirement of what the personal statement can be and don't give you too much guidance on what should be in it. However, the one area that you need to keep in mind is that the personal statement must be less than 5,300 characters. So that is about a page and a half, single space, 12-point font on Microsoft Word. That's a pretty long personal statement. We suggest trying to keep the personal statement somewhere to about a page. And the reason for this is because medical school admission officers receive hundreds of applications, if not thousands of applications. So if you're actually sitting down and having to read hundreds, maybe thousands of personal statements, you really want that personal statement to be as interesting as possible, but also as concise as possible. So we found that a page is pretty much the place where applicants can say what they need to say, but then also still make it very interesting for the reader. Another common concern that I see come up is when should I start writing the personal statement? So you don't want to write it too early. For instance, you don't really want to write it when you're a freshman in college because a lot of your pre-medical experiences haven't happened yet. So you definitely want to wait till you've had a lot of your extracurricular activities, maybe leadership experiences, things like that, in order to provide some commentary on those and some discussion of the qualities gained from those experiences. So usually I suggest that people really don't start writing before the winter of the application year they're applying. So sometime in December, if they're applying in June, that's an okay time to start. I think everybody is different on the time they need to write their personal statement. So some people will take months and some people will take a week. However, I think the latest you want to start preparing your personal statement is probably in April of your application year. So that will give you about 2 months to finalize a personal statement. Definitely, if you want to start in February or March, that's totally fine. But the latest you should probably wait is about April so that you can submit your application on time in June. A lot of other people really just don't know where to start with their personal statement. And it's hard to gather your thoughts and ideas on things you want to include in the personal statement. And everybody's different. So whoever you talk to will give you slightly different advice on how to construct your personal statement, and that's totally fine. However, I've worked with a lot of students through personal statements, and so today I want to share my technique on how to work through the personal statement. And hopefully this will give you guys some ideas on where to start and maybe start jotting down some words on paper. So do you all remember those 5-paragraph essays that you had to do in high school and your English classes in college, where you have an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion? Those are pretty easy to write. I think most people have probably mastered that essay format, and that is where I suggest you start with the personal statement. So That means the first paragraph you're going to concentrate on is the introduction. And most people will tell you that the introduction is the most important part of the personal statement. This is because this is where you really want to catch the reader's attention. Again, these admissions committee members are reading hundreds, maybe thousands of personal statements. What is it about yours that's going to catch their attention and make them want to continue reading? A lot of personal statements are going to just go by the wayside. They'll read the first couple sentences and then maybe they'll skim through the rest, or maybe they'll even put it aside. You really want to use that first paragraph, those first few lines, to catch their attention, to make them want to continue reading. So how do you do that? Again, everybody's going to have a slightly different approach, but I usually suggest writing some kind of anecdote. So the anecdote can really be about anything. It can be related to a clinical activity. It could be related to sports. It could be related to a leadership activity. Whatever it is, try to make it something interesting and something that's going to kind of make the reader want to continue reading, because they're going to wonder, where is it that they're going with this anecdote and how is this going to relate back to their desire to go into medicine? And then I suggest maybe using 3 to 5 sentences to talk about that anecdote. You don't want to go into extreme details about it. Maybe using a few sentences, and then the final 1 to 2 sentences of the introduction should really lay out your thesis or establish your theme of what you're going to talk about in your personal statement. So this can relate it back to your anecdote, and you should say something to the effect of, these experiences are what pushed me on my path to medicine, or something like that. So it gives a little bit of a heads up to the reader on what they can anticipate reading. So let's do a quick example. One personal statement that I really liked was somebody that talked about their marathon running. So they started off with an anecdote and they said, I'll just read you a couple lines. I had just passed the final mile marker. My ankles hurt from the uneven trail and my arm ached from my fall. My 21-kilometer trail run was finally coming to an end. From the beautiful rainforest valleys of Hawaii, ascending above steep cliffs with endless views of the turquoise Pacific water, down muddy, slick slopes with ropes to assist the unsure footing, my race was exhilarating, treacherous, and exhausting. So you can see in this personal statement example, they start off with a pretty interesting anecdote. You're kind of wondering, what are they talking about with, I just passed my final mile marker, my ankles hurt, and then they kind of bring you in a little bit deeper by describing the location of where they're running. And then finally, at the end of this introduction, they link this to what they're going to be talking about. So the last couple sentences read like this. Instead of becoming overwhelmed on the seemingly insurmountable journey, I managed it step by step and eventually succeeded. This approach has translated out of my races and into my life, where it has been exceptionally useful in becoming a physician. So now they're going to link it to the rest of their personal statement and how they can use that anecdote to demonstrate their qualities and their attributes that are going to push them into becoming a physician. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some things to avoid in the introduction of the personal statement are cliches. And by cliches, I mean people saying, I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5 when I broke my ankle, or I've always loved science and working with people. Irregardless if those are true or not, they have been used over and over and over in personal statements, and medical school admissions committees just don't get excited about those types of personal statements. They will almost always just skim those ones because they'll think, oh, this is just like every other one I've read. Make sure there's not any red flags in it. Let me skim it and then put it aside. So try to avoid cliches like that and make yours as unique as possible so that they want to continue reading and they're going to really find more about you and your personality. So now that we've talked about the introduction, let's talk about the body of the personal statement. So these are going to be about the next 3 paragraphs, so the majority of the personal statement. And what is it here that you want to talk about? Well, you can really talk about anything. However, I think there are some do's and don'ts. So again, this is your personal statement. So I really, really recommend talking about who you are as a person. What is it about you that makes you unique? tell your own story to the admissions committee. Again, you don't need to go in huge details, but this is your chance to let them know things about you that aren't present on other areas of your application. And going into that, the don't of the body of the personal statement is don't just repeat what they've already read in the activities section of your application. It's okay to discuss some of the aspects of some of the activities you listed, but you don't want to go ahead and describe your research in detail or a clinical activity that you already put as your most meaningful experience and really discussed all aspects of it. If you have something new to say or to add about a particular activity or experience, you can do so in a personal statement, but don't just reiterate everything that's already been said. In the body, I really recommend trying to continue with that theme that you established in your introduction. And then again, relate that back to who you are as a person and maybe give some examples of experiences where you demonstrate that theme or those qualities and how that relates to you wanting to go into medical school. So let's take our example. So this person again ended with, this approach has translated outside of my races and into my life where it has been exceptionally useful in becoming a physician. So the qualities that this person is talking about is really qualities of perseverance, determination, things like that. So that's probably what they're going to continue about in the body of their personal statement, is talking about those different qualities. So perhaps they could talk about how they really use these types of qualities in one of their research labs where their experiments just kept failing and failing. But instead of just giving up or not understanding what to do, they continue to use innovative and creative methods to come up with a solution. Or perhaps they can talk about a hardship where maybe they were struggling financially with paying for college, and instead of dropping out and looking for a job, they decided to work 2 jobs and continue to strive and put themselves through college. So these are just a couple examples. Obviously, if these don't apply to you, that's totally fine. You have to do some introspection and see what are some examples that really significantly influenced you that do go along with the theme that you established. But these are just a couple examples where this applicant is going to develop more of their own story and talk about more of themselves using some experiences and examples to really illustrate their important characteristics. Then what I suggest in that last body paragraph, or perhaps even linking that and establishing it in the conclusion, which some people are able to do, is bring this back to why you want to become a physician. For some people's personal statements, if they use like a clinical experience anecdote at the beginning and they kind of discuss their path to medicine, the whole personal statement, they don't really need to link this back to medicine. But for somebody like in this example where she talks about her running and this type of thing, she's going to want to link this back to what are these qualities that she has that ultimately make her want to pursue medicine and why. Obviously, everybody has slightly different reasons for wanting to be a physician. Some people did have some kind of epiphany moment that really changed their life. Some people have just really liked the study of medicine. You don't have to have some huge significant reason. You can just talk about how your thirst for knowledge and your dedication to helping others and your ability to constantly want to challenge yourself have led you to this path. So perhaps in this person's personal statement, they could, after they talk about these influencing experiences that they've had throughout their life, they could say something to the extent of, with the culmination of these experiences and my desire to help other people, I've really decided that the intellectual stimulation and challenging environment of medicine would suit all of my qualities and bring out the best in me. Something to that extent. Again, everybody's going to have something different to say here, but you should at least touch on why you want to go into medicine, or at least link back what you are discussing to how that relates to your desire to practice medicine. Then finally, in the conclusion, again, going back to the whole 5-paragraph essay format, This is where you want to summarize and kind of restate your theme and restate your experiences a little bit if possible. You don't always have to do this. And then kind of come up with a conclusion statement about how pursuing medicine is your absolutely sure next path in your life, or how you're ready to take on the challenges of medical school, etc. This is going to be a little bit different. I usually really recommend trying to hone down that first aspect of the personal statement, the introduction and the body paragraphs, and then the conclusion can really kind of come together at the end. Because a conclusion can sometimes be hard to write. Sometimes you feel like you're being a little redundant. So get the content down of those first few paragraphs, and then once you're finalizing things, then add in a conclusion. If it's only like a few sentences, that's fine. But you definitely want to end it gently and not just leave the reader hanging, so to speak. So that is a little bit about how to construct your personal statement. Everyone's going to have a little bit different of a method, but I think that this is logical and kind of an easy way to at least get your gears rolling and start thinking about how you want to put it all together. Obviously, you may have a totally different approach. You may want to write about something different altogether, and that is okay. But what I really recommend is having somebody that knows medical school personal statements, that has read them, that understands what it is that admissions committee members are really looking for in a personal statement, help you through this process. So have people read through it, have people give you advice and edits. Again, starting earlier in the process helps because you can ask for multiple opinions and get edits for other people. But at the same time, take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt. Again, everyone's going to have a different approach. So stick with one person or two people that you're really, really comfortable with their knowledge, and make sure that you two can really develop concrete information and material to put in your personal statement and continue to work with that. After you've established the content of your personal statement, you can continue to fine tune it and make the phrasing perfect and make it read very well. But the hardest part is just getting some words on paper and getting that content down. So hopefully this helped a little bit. Definitely let us know if you have any questions, if you're interested in working with us. Our advisors have had tons of experience writing and reading and helping people edit their personal statements. So we can definitely help you through this process. And even if this didn't get your gears turning at all, we can definitely have those conversations with you to get you start thinking about what it is you should write about and focusing on your personal statement. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Have a great day.
Our mission is to inspire, encourage, and inform students as you journey through a rigorous and intricate process of achieving your dreams in medicine. Visit us at perspectivedoctor.com for more essential resources in your medical school journey.